Tax. None of us much enjoy paying it, but some just don't pay.
There's a lot of cash there.
Whether by avoidance or evasion, these are the tax dodgers.
You're looking at solicitors, lawyers, doctors, surgeons.
The public are demanding something must be done.
The real thieves are the billionaires, the corporations who are avoiding tax.
Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs think they've discovered a £36 billion black hole where the cash isn't being handed over. With a £4 billion budget, extraordinary new powers and a 60,000 strong army of staff, they're getting tough like never before.
Police Customs, open the door!
We're closing in on people, we're using our data, we're determined that everybody pays their share.
We follow the elite criminal investigation force, catching tax dodgers. A new team set up to tackle the affluent.
Afternoon, Revenue and Customs.
It is the wealthier population in our society that we decided we needed to target.
And those that come under HMRC's spotlight.
You know, you do not have to say anything unless you wish to do. I'm sitting in bed in my nightie, literally just woken up.
With self-assessment on the rise, 10 million people decide themselves how much to pay the tax man. And some believe that too many of them are refusing to play fair. Welcome to the front line of the war between the tax dodgers and the tax man. It's 5 a.m. A criminal investigation team from HMRC are on their way to arrest a man suspected of tax evasion. In charge is Senior Investigating Officer Duncan McCallum.
This particular operation is an organised criminal group who are attacking the duty system. An organisation based in Italy and the UK who are evading millions of pounds of duty on the importation of wine.
The taxman estimates tax criminals cost Britain £4.8 billion a year.
We're the arrest team, so we'll be dealing directly with the main principal. We'll secure the building from the outside, and then we'll gain entry. We'll arrest the gentleman and then transport him to a police station for interview.
Yeah, control from arrest team at 25, we're in position and await your call.
So what we've got is a coordinated knock where we're coordinating with our colleagues in Italy, where it's currently 6 o'clock, and it's essential that we all go in at the same time.
Police Customs, open the door!
I think we should put the door in.
Police Customs, open the door, we're going to knock the door in!
He's had his chance.
You want me? Yeah, I want you. Yes. You right now. Right. For what? Put your phone down. Put your phone down. Come in the room here. Stand over here, Leslie. Put the flag out. Put it out. Put it out. Put it out for the time being. Just put it out, then you can light one up in a minute. Put it out for the time being. Okay. Are you alright? Calm down, alright? I'm alright. Put it down. Okay. I will arrest you on suspicion of being involved in a full invasion of excise duty. I don't speak to you. You do speak enough.
Okay, the target here is secure.
Duncan McCallum has investigated tax criminals for 25 years. An old-school customs officer, he's cracked drug rings, smugglers and massive duty fraud. But things are changing.
You're looking at the higher echelons of criminality, organised criminal gangs that specifically set out to evade tax. In days gone by, primarily, that would be all that you were dealing with. But again, in an attempt to raise revenue, to meet government targets, we're now looking at people from all aspects, people who you might have thought previously were evading what you might consider to be a relatively small amount of tax. It is now viewed as just not acceptable. If you do not pay your tax, we will pursue you.
Pay your tax! Pay your tax! Pay your tax! Pay your tax! Pay your tax!
Some are not convinced that HMRC are spreading the net wide enough and are allowing big business and rich people to pay less tax while staying within the law.
I haven't seen the head of HMRC knocking on Vodafone doors today demanding to get the tax back, so until they do, I'm not going to believe them. And I don't know the ins and outs of tax, but I know the morals about it, and I know these people are dodging tax and that my brother's benefits are being cut, and that's not okay.
Making sure people pay the right amount of tax and catching the criminals who are cheating the system is the job of the chief executive.
We and the public have always kind of known that there are people out there that choose to dodge tax. They are taking service out of your pocket. They're perhaps stopping your mum getting her Meals on Wheels or your children getting the quality of education they need. It's each of us losing something to these dodgers. And it doesn't matter if you're big or small, you've got to pay the tax that you owe if this country is to be able to go forward as it wants to. So whether we're taking 100 million from a big business in a tribunal or we're persuading a small business that he's got to pay his VAT on time, we're there to make sure people pay what they owe. We're closing in on people, we're using our data, we're determined that everybody pays their share.
This expansive approach to catching tax criminals is at the forefront of HMRC's strategy. They're boldly making their intentions clear. Even naming and shaming tax criminals on social media. So how do HMRC first sniff out a tax dodger? Jane Banks works as an intelligence officer. It's her job to find out if you've been hiding something from the tax man.
I'm just looking at this person's self-assessment return that they filed with us, just to see whether it matches what I've got on some of our other systems. And it's one of the first things I look at to see what the customers put against what we hold as well, just to see whether it matches. And it's looking like it's not in this case.
A tool at her disposal is Connect, a supercomputer that can instantaneously access and cross-reference billions of pieces of data from taxpayers' personal information.
So I've got my individual over here, highlighted in red, and it just shows you the amount of stuff on here that could be linked. Address information, stamp duty, landlord's letting information, valuation agencies, business entities, so if a person is a director, electoral roll information. With all the systems we have available now, it is like being a detective. The chances are you're not going to get away with it for very long, and we'll catch that person if they're not complying with the rules.
Not complying with the rules can make you a target, even if you don't consider yourself a tax criminal. Richard Hillgrove is a PR executive who received an unexpected knock on the door.
Well, I think it was about 7:15. I was sitting on my desk looking outside here, and the Daily Telegraph had arrived, so I think I was just flicking through the Daily Telegraph. And then I see this, I think 2 cars pull up outside these doors here, and out pop these people wearing bulletproof vests. So they come into that room and they say, "Mr. Hillgrove, are you Mr. Hillgrove?" Looking around, and there's 4 of them all with bulletproof vests on. And I said, "Yes, I am Mr. Hillgrove." He goes, "Mr. Hillgrove, you are under arrest." And I said, what on earth am I under arrest for?" And he started reeling off this list of things I was under suspicion for. Money laundering was included, cheating Her Majesty's public revenue, the whole lot. And he said, "And also, we're going to arrest your wife." I thought, oh my God, no, not her as well. So I said, "Well, I'll go and tell her." No, you won't tell her." "Where is she?" So I said, "She's asleep in the upstairs bedroom." So they start marching. I said, "Can I come up and at least warn her that you're about to wake her up?" "Wow, you can come with us." But so that all of them started trampling up the stairs with me.
I thought he was going to come in and say, "Do you want a cup of coffee?" And he said, "We're under arrest." And I just thought, it's like a touch of frost or remorse or something, and I'm not someone who's ever broken the law or anything like that, so it's not a common occurrence for me to be shaken away. I suppose if you've done something, like if I'd murdered someone and they were buried in the garden, I would have a pretty fair idea of, OK, I've been caught. But I honestly had no idea. They just said, yeah, you're under arrest, and they read me my rights. You know, you do not have to say anything unless you wish to do. I'm sitting in bed in my nightie, literally just woken up.
I just thought this is extreme. I thought, why on earth would you need to treat something which is just a simple tax matter, like late filing VAT submission, with such extremity? I mean, who would give them the mandate to do it? Apparently they don't need a mandate to do it. They're a law unto themselves.
HMRC criminal investigator Duncan McCallum is working a multi-million-pound tax evasion case.
What's the key code for the barrier?
The secretary used.
It involves a massive importation of wine.
Is this towards the beginning, the middle, or the end of the surveillance?
Part of his evidence will come from surveillance footage he's gathered, showing shipments being delivered to a London warehouse.
Our running observation, we noticed that there was about 11 lorries that tended to deliver to the warehouse.
What sort of quantity of these lorries do we think are not declared?
Probably about 80% of the lorries are not declared.
So this is great stuff in that we can show that they were actually receiving 5-6 times what they actually have declared.
Yeah, we showed that there were many more deliveries.
Importations of alcohol, which have not had the duty or tax paid on them, cost this country something like £1 billion a year that should be being paid to the UK economy and is not. When you put the door in of a commercial premises, that's the day that you look for that smoking gun, the evidence that's undeniable, the things that make it plain to everybody that these people are involved in the excise fraud that we say they are.
The intelligence work has paid off.
Is there an alarm code?
Once inside the warehouse, the scale of the importation becomes clear.
There's approximately 75 pallets of wine, £1,500 worth of duty per pallet, in excess of £100,000 in duty on the wine that's actually here. So we estimate, say, 3 or 4 40-foot containers coming into this warehouse every week. Each container, there'll be a duty value of £40,000 perhaps, so an annual equivalence of around £1.8 million.
By raiding the warehouse, not only has Duncan disrupted the operation, but he can also search for other important evidence. There's not much of a paper trail, but having €200,000 in cash hidden away will need some explaining.
There's a small black bag there. For some investigators, there are weeks, months of wondering whether or not you're going to get sufficient evidence to get that positive charging decision, that milestone day when you know that all the work that you've been doing has been worthwhile, when you know that the people who you allege have committed offences will appear before a court and will be made to answer the allegation that you make against them.
Not every investigation has the benefit of finding hard, incriminating evidence. HMRC Bristol branch have got a tip-off from an accountant working for the self-employed PR executive Richard Hillgrove.
VAT is chargeable on goods and services, so anything that we go and purchase from a shop, be it a bottle of wine or a piece of furniture, has an element of VAT charged on it. That VAT is due to be paid over to HMRC. Hillgrove contacted his accountants. They were actually ready to submit the returns. They had all of the business paperwork from Mr. Hillgrove, so they were able to complete a full VAT tax return for that quarter. That was ready to be submitted to HMRC, detailing the VAT liability due to the department, and it's at that stage that Mr. Hillgrove contacted them and told them to hang fire. As a result of that, the accountants correctly submitted a suspicious activity report to us, and it's from that report that we then started to look at a potential criminal investigation.
After his arrest, Richard Hillgrove was taken into custody at Taunton Police Station. The allegation put to him was that he'd evaded £52,000 of VAT.
My wife, who's not involved in the financials, was caught up in the gunfire, and both of us were taken away in separate cars, 2 officers per car, not able to speak to each other for the day, both put in police cells, given sort of cold soup. And she was in there for most of the day in detention, and I was in there most of the day as well.
I was pissed off with Richard. I was annoyed, even though I was fully, you know, I knew a mistake had been made. I thought, Kim, for getting me into this mess, whatever's happened, you know. Funny thing is, I suppose I'm quite patriotic. I didn't want to be angry with Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. I didn't want to be angry with you know, Her Majesty's the police. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be angry, but I just didn't want to be angry with them. I couldn't believe that they would do this to me. Does that make sense? Because this is England.
Customs, get down to the floor. Down.
The reality is that there's tax evasion in all professions, and professions that you might not immediately think of. We're looking at solicitors, lawyers, doctors. There are elements of those trades, professions, that substantial amounts of tax are being evaded.
Once an investigation begins, HMRC look into the motivation to evade tax. One way of doing this is to study the lifestyle of the suspect.
Lifestyle checks are essential for any investigation. You look at the people who you are investigating, how they live. Is it commensurate with their declared income? Are they living a life that someone on that income you would not expect to be living? They're very important because they're indicators as to whether or not there's fraud.
Once Colin and his team are able to obtain Richard Hillgrove's bank statements, they hope to identify why the VAT owed is not being paid.
We'll be looking for evidence of lavish spending. Is Mr. Hillgrove using that money for private expenses over and above what we would expect, rather than paying it over to HMRC? We've got various purchases at department stores, including Harvey Nichols in Bristol, Selfridges in London. There are a number of holidays abroad as well. £2,500 purchase at Louis Vuitton, followed by £260 the same day. These are not small amounts. These are running into several hundred, if not thousands of pounds. During the very time when Mr. Hillgrove should have been submitting the VAT returns and paying over that VAT, he was going out and making these very lavish payments.
This is the cause of all our problems. It's the vanity case that my husband bought me for my 30th birthday. Most people just chuck their handbag and actually chuck their makeup in something like that, don't they? I wanted to look like Joan Collins, obviously. And yeah, it's expensive. There's a couple of grand, I know. But this has been my downfall, this. It's my prize and my downfall. This was mentioned no less than 30 times in court. Like a shining beacon of indulgence, basically. And boy, did we pay for it, eh? What they needed to do was put our lifestyle on trial because they were putting it in front of a jury of normal people. And we're normal people, but they didn't want us to look normal. They wanted us to look other.
Understanding the behaviour of tax dodgers is an essential weapon in HMRC's arsenal. It means they can identify certain groups of the population as high risk. And now that they are targeting the wealthy, a team has been created called the Affluent Unit, headed up by Christy Bamborough.
It was set up to look at affluent individuals, so that would be individuals with income of £150,000 plus, or assets ranging from 1 million up to 20 million pounds. So obviously it is the wealthier population in our society, and it's a population that we decided we needed to target. There is a population that will make every effort to avoid income tax by different ways and means, such as using avoidance schemes, offshore bank accounts, various methods that they try and reduce their tax bill. Sometimes it's legal, what they're doing. On occasion it's not, and that's where we come in to identify those individuals who aren't paying, and we investigate those individuals and make sure they're paying the correct amount of tax at the right time.
To find out who these people are and whether or not they're evading tax, Christy works closely with Jane Banks in Intelligence, who can produce a spreadsheet showing the incomings and outgoings of every UK taxpayer.
We believe some of his income, what he's done is he's kept it under his personal allowance, so that's going to have an impact as well. So we need to look at what other kind of investment income he's had, if he's declared that correctly.
The main risk that jumps out at you is means how on earth does he afford the funding of the properties?
Obviously he's well under what he needs on a couple of the years.
The years where he's purchased the properties, he clearly didn't have enough.
This isn't even worst case scenario, really, is it? It could be considerably worse.
Yeah, this is a very low estimate based on, you know, the outgoings we've got going on there. Even like the travel's included, and I think, you know, that's a low estimate based on some of the intelligence we've received.
Yeah.
But tackling rich people is a challenge for HMRC. The wealthy have complicated tax affairs. Some have money safely hidden far away overseas, but they can also pay for lawyers who help give them the cloak of anonymity.
20 years ago, I was employed by a gentleman who was very much involved in the Middle East contract, and the process invited me to set up some Swiss bank accounts by HSBC. Over a period of time, there was an accumulation of money which should have been declared to HMRC, and it wasn't. That went for 20 years and has now created quite a legacy which needs to be resolved. Unbeknownst to myself, the accounts which had been held by HSBC was subject to a theft by one of the employees of HSBC, and all that data, and this was in the, I would say probably about 2006, 2007, that data was stolen with a view to touting it around governments. It was a ticking clock that information was going to come into the public domain. And the issue that really faced me was whether I jumped off the cliff or I waited till I was pushed. So I guess I jumped. Thanks very much.
His hope is that he came clean early enough and a specialist tax advisor might help him come to an agreement with the taxman on what to pay back. Richard Hillgrove, who is being criminally investigated for tax evasion, is now defending himself in court, as he can't afford a lawyer. In the next 3 weeks, he'll find out if a jury believe he's guilty of tax evasion. The taxman is under pressure to recover as much tax as possible. As well as pushing cases through the courts, they're also seizing the assets of convicted tax dodgers. Amanda Pettit is an HMRC compliance officer. Making sure the taxpayer gets the best deal from convicted tax criminals is at the forefront of her work.
I'm going off to Sheffield Auction House to view some jewellery items that have been placed on sale. They're items that have been recovered under the Proceeds of Crime Act. It's recouping the criminal proceeds because that hurts for the criminals. They don't mind serving the prison sentences, but they really hate you taking the cash from them.
Jewellery was seized from a man who's currently serving 4.5 years for conspiracy to evade excise duty.
It was the illegal importation of cigarettes, tobacco, and the excise amount evaded and duty that would have been due on the amounts seized and the amounts that we were able to prove that they'd imported was £27 million. So the guide price is £30,000 to £40,000 on this item.
It is, yes, and I think it will sell.
And so the retail value is approximately £200,000. And it's, I would say, been bought with the criminal proceeds of the fraud. And of course, in this case, we did seize a bag with £244,000 in it, just hidden under a bed. Do you think we could have a look at the lot 303, the dummy?
You certainly can. It's the first time I've seen a gold one. Must have been a very posh child.
What was the estimate?
£400 to £500.
It's not something I think that I'd seek out to buy. I don't have children, but for any of my nieces and nephews.
Modern baby's dummy. Must start the bidding at £300, £320.
HMRC hope to recover up to £250,000. The bidding starts with lot 303, the baby's dummy.
480, 500, 520, 550.
It seems relatives of the convicted tax criminal are also attending the auction. Bidder 279 wants to buy back some cherished heirlooms.
Top left at 580, fair warning, have we done? Sorry, forgot your number, 279, cheers. Lot number 287, impressive single stone diamond cocktail ring. Must start the bidding at £29,500. 30 we're after. 30,000, who's on 31? 31, 32, 33, 34. With the lady, 35, 40,000, 45, 50, 55, 56, 57, 56, Liam Liddy on the front. You paid 59, 60,000, 60,000 on the front. Older now at 60, fair warning, going, gone.
By the time the bidding is finished, the collection of jewellery has fetched a total of £180,000. Money that will be returned to the public purse.
It is a game of cat and mouse, and yes, I think with the additional resources that we're being provided with, we're probably better placed now to actually pursue these individuals and recoup more of the taxes that are being lost.
Six months after Duncan arrested the Italian wine dealer, he's still pursuing his multi-million-pound evasion case. It's the large quantities of cash discovered that will form an important part of the evidence.
When we actually looked at the shower unit, we found a concealment in the roof underneath a polystyrene tarp.
Oh, ceiling top.
And that blue carrier bag contained €220,000. Sometime after that, we also found a floor safe, which, as you can see, it's a deep concrete concealment underneath carpet. We eventually got the code, and when we did open it, £148,000 in sterling in the floor. Now, at the time, he claimed that this money was his life savings, but obviously we believe it's related to the vast quantity of alcohol that's been going through there. That's the actual money in situ as it was actually found, which is all good evidence for the jury.
Yeah.
They see exactly what happened on the day.
The executive with the offshore Swiss bank account probably should have declared his assets. And now he's trying to limit the potential damage. He's hired specialist tax advisors, Jackie Fleming and Steve Beresford, who actually used to work for HMRC.
When I was a tax inspector, I found something in every single case, always could, always would. People fall into three characters nowadays when the revenue are looking at things. Those who take reasonable care. The second people are the careless people, do their accounts at the end of the year or hand their a bag of receipts over to their accountant without any sort of bookkeeping, not knowing whether all their receipts are there and not issuing invoices. And then there's a third set of deliberate people who, or people that take deliberate action where they may have two sets of records, or people who deliberately put money offshore, but they know what they're doing. They've got some predetermined action to evade tax as opposed to avoid tax.
In 2009, HMRC set up the Liechtenstein Disclosure Facility, which enables people with money offshore to own up and settle their tax affairs on favourable terms. But failure to come forward early enough can result in massive financial penalties or a Code of Practice 9 civil investigation, something the tax advisors are trying to avoid.
They refuse to budge at the moment, despite the series of letters and representations we've made. And at the moment, they're insisting that settlement of your case proceeds on the lines of Code of Practice 9, and you're not being permitted the various concessions and reliefs and treatment that the LDF would afford you. Jackie's been doing some calculations in that regard just to establish what the difference would be in terms of a tax settlement. Sure.
It's almost double, in fact. We're looking between £400,000 and £500,000 worth of difference between a Code of Practice 9 and an LDF. So I know that's not good.
I just feel that having taken the initiative myself in declaring the position from the start, that the revenue are taking an unfair view, really, to be perfectly honest. They don't appear to even be opening their eyes to the fact that I came forward, and it appears to me that I'm being unfairly penalised.
When HMRC are persuading people, come forward early, we'll look after you more, and we'll be more tolerant of what you've done, and you know, you'll see the benefits, the one person that did, and you're actually going to be paying probably double the amount of tax than if you'd have waited.
He's looking at a tax bill of £650,000. But if he can convince HMRC that he came forward early enough, then half of what they say he owes could be written off.
You don't know whether you're going to go bankrupt, you don't know whether your family are going to be able to live where they are now, or what your lifestyle is going to be affected. The day of reckoning will come where we have to sit down and finalise the number, and I will have to then make a commitment to pay that over a certain period of time.
The day has arrived for Richard Hillgrove's verdict. In court, he was unanimously found guilty by the jury of cheating the public revenue. The prosecution proved he spent £97,000 that he should have paid over to HMRC in VAT and national insurance contributions.
We're in the in-between bit at the moment, between having been found guilty of tax evasion, which I still can't quite believe, but anyway, and sentencing. So I have my moments where I just think I wish this whole thing could just go away. Professionally, it's a challenge having this accusation, because being a financial PR and respected by chairman and CEOs for managing their reputations, it's not the greatest advertisement in the world to be labelled a tax fraudster.
My husband will be sentenced on the 25th of May, so that's another 6 weeks of worrying. I feel trepidation and fear, and that sentence could be up to 2 years in prison.
Although HMRC have widened the net to catch tax criminals, they've been criticised for not dragging offshore evaders into the criminal courts. The businessman with the Swiss bank account isn't facing criminal charges.
I think the biggest nightmare or the biggest fear in the nightmare before was that somebody was going to knock on the door at 4 o'clock in the morning and start removing pieces of furniture and wanting me to go to the police station. That went very early on. It's just been a nagging pain now, which has gone on and on, and the cost associated with it's been enormous. I mean, I can't overemphasize what cost has been involved from everybody's standpoint, both from the awful advice I got in the first phases of the project, because I went and consulted the wrong people, the mistakes that I made on that, and then subsequently found Steve and Jackie, and you know, we worked forward on that. So it's been a huge financial drain, but you know, hopefully we're on the home straight.
If you're wealthy, then you're fine. You can do what you want with tax. Because they only go for people that they genuinely think they've got a chance of a conviction. So they go for people that haven't got lots of money to defend themselves. So we were a soft target. We had a high profile, but we didn't have millions for lawyers. And that was even read out in court, that there was a statement from the HMRC investigating officer that said, we've looked at them and we don't believe that they are wealthy. I think that when you set targets to get criminal prosecutions, the people that would be targeted by the HMRC would not be companies, the kind of companies that have sit-down lunches with the HMRC and write off half their tax debt. You know, they wouldn't be the Googles, they wouldn't be the Starbucks, they wouldn't be even medium-sized company. It would be small business owners.
The Hillgrove family are moving out of their large country house, following Richard's conviction for tax evasion. But because the house is rented, they don't own any substantial assets that HMRC can confiscate, but they hope the prosecution has a deterrent effect.
The jury unanimously found Mr. Hillgrove guilty. Obviously, that was a positive result for HMRC. We had managed to get a successful prosecution. We were able to get the message across that if you're engaged in tax evasion, this is what you can face. And certainly at the time, Mr. Hillgrove was left in no doubt that he could face a custodial sentence.
Tomorrow, they'll find out what his punishment will be. But tonight, they're holding a pre-sentencing party at their newly rented cottage.
I think a huge injustice has been done. I think I've been a victim of this mad steamroller effect the HMRC seem to be having into trying to prosecute as many people as possible.
Yeah, okay, for the victim stuff.
Okay, but anyway, the main message is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and it's wonderful you're all here tonight. Thank you for being here, showing your support, and it's also housewarming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lois.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Cheers.
Majesty's pleasure. where I'm heading, potentially. But I think it's shameful that people who call themselves Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs are acting in her name. Because if she actually knew what they're getting up to, she'd be horrified.
Sentencing day, and HMRC's Colin Spinks is at court to find out what punishment will be handed down.
Hi.
How did that go?
Good. Mr. Hillgrove was sentenced to 15 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years. He used to do 200 hours of unpaid work, previously known as community service, and he also has to pay £5,000 costs.
Well, I felt completely relieved that I'm out here on the street and not heading my way into some prison cell. Unbelievable. Could have gone either way, really. It could have gone either way in terms of, you know, the jury had found me guilty, so there was a sentencing situation. I'm very, very relieved I can get on with my life now.
We have to undertake a wide range of cases. The message that we're trying to get across is that we do not target one particular area. Anybody who is engaged in tax evasion can expect to be investigated thoroughly, and where appropriate, they will be prosecuted as well.
It's a big day for Duncan and his multi-million-pound tax evasion case.
Actually being in a police station, a charging decision is not something you do every day. It's something that you might be doing every couple of months. But yeah, they are the good days. They're the happy days. Good morning. I'm from Revenue and Customs. I'm here for a charging decision. Thank you. They're the days that you know that all that work, all those hours you spent compiling that evidence, it's all been worthwhile when that individual's in front of a custody sergeant being charged with an offence. That's the day you know he'll be before a court and he'll answer the allegations that we've made and that he will be brought to justice.
Officer from HMRC.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm here for the charging decision. Okay, great. Thank you.
The suspect is charged with VAT fraud, excise fraud and money laundering offences totalling £45 million. Richard Hillgrove is paying for his crime with 200 hours community service. But has he learnt his lesson?
Well, they always say, you know, there's no smoke without fire, and I suppose if I'd been late filing a bit and played the system a bit and took things to the edge a bit and thought I, you know, could just delay filing and all that, I was prime target material. And it's a lesson to me about keeping my eye on the ball. It was vastly disproportionate being criminalised for something that just needed either a fine or a rap across the knuckles or a quiet word. I think that was completely disproportionate and I got very unfortunate. But if I was of the view that I would only spend it if I had it, rather than what I hoped to get, then there'd be absolutely no way this would have happened in the first place.
HMRC won their case against Hillgrove. But for Colin Spinks, there's unfinished business.
What we'll do now is review Mr. Hillgrove's finances. There are various means that we can recover those assets under the Proceeds of Crime Act. So we will continue to work on that to establish the true debt and then pursue Mr. Hillgrove in order that we recover the payment in full.
I'm really sorry that we got behind on our VAT and everything. But I genuinely don't think that anyone, unless they've actually done something really, really bad, deserves what happened to us and the kids the last 2 years. You know, we will always be a target now. But in terms of the HMRC, see it being annoyed that Richard didn't get a custodial sentence. So I am very positive about the future, but that still doesn't mean that I don't worry when there's a sort of unappealing looking man in a cheap suit knocking on the door.